that time of the year where you will see hype trains running rampant. I would go so far as to say you will see a few hype trains falling off the rails. It's sad, but it's true. I don't want to speak so much to teams because we've talked about teams ad nauseum. I want to speak more specifically to individuals across the college football landscape. They're getting a lot of hype, getting a lot of attention, but I think for those guys, I think it's warranted. I think for some of these guys we're going to talk about right now, all these guys we're going to talk about right now, you can believe the hype for these dudes. And I'll start with this one, Jackson Dart. Quarterback at Ole Miss. What's the hype around him right now? Heisman Trophy dark horse, got the 6th best odds right now to win the Little Bronze Trophy when it's all said and done, according to Vegas. He mentioned it when we sat down with him at SEC Media Days. He was like, yeah, there's a lot of juice around Ole Miss. Like the social media crowd is kind of propping us up, if I'm paraphrasing there. And I told him during that interview, I was like, hey, yeah, hand up, brother. That's we are part of that said social media crowd that is propping y'all up. But nonetheless, man, the thing that I love so much about Jackson Dart, we've talked about the defense a lot, we talked about the weapons a lot, and he's got a lot of them, which is another reason for optimism for him. He gets another year to be more fluent in this offense. And one of my great regrets is that we did not go watch Ole Miss play LSU when we were credentialed for that game. You know, it is what it is. Hindsight's 2020. But watching that game back, yes, LSU's defense left something to be desired, but with Jackson Dart being able to be another year more fluent in the language that is this offense, you could tell last year, man, he was in command. He knew where to go with the football. He knew the checks. He knew where he was going pre-snap. He knew if he got certain coverages where that football was supposed to go. And that was massive because his first year in Oxford, that wasn't how it looked. And so the progress he made from year 1 to year 2 was evident, but the jump he could make from 2 to 3, I think, is even more exciting. And he brought in Juice Wells to help him. I think Jordan Watkins might be one of the most slept-on wide receivers in the SEC, if not the country, period. Competitively now, we said this with Garrett Nussmeier, man. If you're a quarterback in the SEC, you got some juice to you. All right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be a QB1 in the most difficult conference in college football. But after being able to speak with him personally and just kind of get a gauge for what he's about, what you see is what you get with him, dude. Like sometimes you'll see guys operate a certain way on game day, or maybe they try and present themselves a certain way, and it's a front. That's not Jackson Dart, dude. Like he is about that life. You see the eye black, you see the headband, you see the cleats, you see all the swag. Like that's him. That's how he operates. I'll tell you this too. That is exactly how I want my quarterback to operate. That's exactly how I want my quarterback to dress when we are trying to break into the college football playoff if we're Ole Miss. So Jackson Dart, man, he's like that. He's got more weapons, and he is going to be another year better in the system. He's going to operate at another level, I think even a higher level than he did last year, which is saying something. He controls the tempo of this offense. He's going to push it pedal to the metal with more weapons in 2024 by the Jackson Dart hype. Darty season, all season out there in Oxford. Here's one that we haven't touched on in a little bit just because spring football came and went, and we talked about this a lot, but like I'd buy the hype on Ohio State wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. Let's not overthink this. Let's not. He's 6'3", 215 pounds. And it's one thing to hear guys like me sit behind a mic and tell you how good he is. He was the number 1 player for us in the class of 2024 here at On 3. He was a dude. Period, mic drop, the end. No way around it. It's another thing to hear coaches say, yeah, he's special now. You hear a lot of people say that. You hear the word special. You hear the word freak thrown around a lot with him when you talk to different people in the football world at a coach's level. But then you hear players talk about him. And when players talk about another player, like let's really pay attention. Every single player that you've heard from Ohio State talk about Jeremiah Smith, it's not just like, yeah, he has a chance. It's like, no, he's different. He's a freak. Jack Sawyer said it the other day at SEC Media Days. Denzel Burke said it during the spring. Will Howard said it during the spring. These are individuals to where they don't need to juice up a young freshman. I promise you, dude, as an upperclassman, the last thing you really want to do is give too much credit to a true freshman that's been there all of 15 minutes in a few practices. Jeremiah Smith is like that. He's proven it multiple times behind closed doors. We've seen peaks via social media. Let's trust the buzz. Let's not overthink this. Jeremiah Smith, let's buy the hype on the young Buckeye wide receiver. He's got a chance to be the next great one. Now, speaking of hype, man, I don't know if there's been more hype around an individual. We mentioned the number 1 player in 2024. How about the number 1 player in 2023 for us here at On 3? Nico Iamaleava, the minute he committed to Tennessee, if you were a Tennessee fan, you're like, all right, this is it. This is our ticket to getting to the top of the mountain, to being back at Tennessee, to being what we have always wanted to be at Tennessee since, the late 90s. I think the ceiling with him is obvious. The ceiling with him is very obvious. You know what he has physically when it comes to pushing the ball downfield and the way the ball jumps out of his hand. We all understand that. But I think what doesn't get talked about enough when you talk about the Nico Iamaleava hype, what about the floor? I think the floor for him is outrageously high. And the reason why I feel that way, look back at Joe Milton last year. Didn't have as many weapons. We've said that many times. Wasn't really a great ad-libber. That's not to say that Joe Milton wasn't a good athlete, but when things got a little bit hairy, he wasn't the guy to break, contain, get out of there, and probably pick up 7 yards for you, if not buy more time, keep his eyes downfield. That wasn't really his game. And even with both those things being the case last year for Tennessee, they still scored 30 points a game. You look at Nico and what he can do running the football, how good of an athlete he is. I think the bowl game against Iowa was a great idea of what we could get from him early on in his career. It's a really good defense. It's your first start. We're trying to figure out how we're going to push the ball downfield against this defense. No problem. Let's run the ball. Nico factors into that run game, runs for 3 touchdowns on the day. I think he's a good enough athlete to make it work until he totally figures out college football. Now, that's not me saying that he has to get away with bad habits, but I think you can help yourself being a good athlete at the quarterback position like Nico is. So I'd buy the hype on him because when that light bulb comes on, it's going to be fluorescent. It is going to be like your favorite neon sign at whatever convenience store you shop at. It will be very, very evident when the light bulb comes on for number 8. And until it completely does, the floor I think is still real high. I'd buy the hype on Nico Iamaleava. Let's go back to another freshman wide receiver, man. We said let's not overthink it with Jeremiah Smith. Let's trust our eyes with Cam Coleman over there at Auburn. We saw what he did in the A-Day. We did. There was a lot of hype around him during the spring, too, and we went out and saw him during spring practice with our own eyes. He just looks different. He moves different. He operates different. 6'3", 200 pounds in the A-Day. Had that deep catch to start the game. Had another touchdown catch down the sideline. 92 yards, 1 touchdown in the A-Day. That'll do. That'll do. The fact that he got the spring to learn college, not college football, to learn college. I'm telling you, that's massive for these young bucks early on to get some chemistry with Peyton Thorne and then also to get comfortable in the college football world as well. That's going to be massive for him. He's a star. Buy the hype on Cam Coleman. Trust your eyes. Don't overthink it. Whatever you want to say about Cam Coleman, everything you've heard to this point, it has been true. I'd buy the hype. He's going to factor in a big way in year 1 out there on the Plains. Now, Cam Ward, from one Cam to another. Cam Ward, man, we all know his physical tools. And if you're a Miami fan, you're banking very much so on him at quarterback being the reason why you win the ACC and make the college football playoff. I'd buy the hype around Cam Ward, not so much because of the physical tools, even though those are special, and that's a big reason why you get excited about him. How about what you've heard about him and what's being said in-house right now at Miami, just about who he is as a leader, as a temperature setter? I get as excited as a college football fan about Cam Ward, the alpha at Miami, as much as I am the quarterback at Miami. We've been able to communicate with some folks close to Miami, and they all say the same thing. It's not like there's a discrepancy from one guy to the next. They're all like, he's the alpha, he's the leader. That's contagious, man. That's very contagious. When you have a leader who's leading from the front at quarterback, sets you up for success. Also, in addition to the alpha mentality and in addition to the physical tools we mentioned, you hear a lot, too, about how cerebral he is. I'll be very surprised if we don't see Cam Ward have a lot of freedom within this offense to check into what he wants to check into. Just my gut on things. He's very, very football savvy. That's another thing you hear a lot about him. So that's one thing you'd worry about with a transfer quarterback, like I mentioned with other guys throughout different segments that we've done on this show. Can they acclimate to the new offense? Can they get up to speed? Are they able to digest a whole new playbook in the course of a spring leading into week 0, week 1, whenever they play their first game? Cam Ward is that guy. He is that guy. He's in control of the offense. The physical tools are one thing. I'd buy the hype because of all you hear about him as an alpha and all you hear about him being cerebral in running Miami's entire system. So get excited about that. Now, one more individual that I buy the hype in, and I want to be careful how we attack this next part of this segment. I buy the Dylan Raiola hype. I buy the Dylan Raiola hype in the sense that he is going to be more than capable to do what they ask him to do. Now, what are they going to ask him to do? Be efficient throwing the football downfield. And when there's money on the table, meaning we've run power 3 times in a row, we've got those safeties creeping up because they're tired of getting burned. A little play action, hand in the cookie jar, over the top, cash money, strike up the band, good times rolling in Lincoln. You can't miss those. Quite frankly, Nebraska, over the course of the last however many seasons, has not had that consistently. They have it now in 15. And so when I say buy the hype, there's some hype out there. In any hype store you go to, some hype is just a little bit irresponsible to purchase, right? It is. And there's some hype right now around Dylan Raiola in the most extreme part of any fan base. They're saying he's going to win the Heisman, he's going to be this, he's going to be that one in the Big Ten. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. He is the guy, though, to lead you to bowl eligibility and beyond. And I think also it's worth noting with Dylan Raiola, if he does the things I just mentioned well early on in the season, do not be surprised in the slightest if they start to give him a little bit more on his plate. Hey, Dylan, you handled that package well. You handled that look well. Let's give you a little bit more freedom at the line. Hey, let's give you a little bit more freedom to check into what you want to check into. Hey, let's put a little bit more vertical pass game in there for you because he's got an arm that's special. That's pretty evident. We've all seen that. We've all seen him uncork it and just drop it in the bucket. We know that. But him being the guy at quarterback for them, being able to be the catalyst behind everything, that could be the next step for him, and that's where the hype train really, really gets pumping. But in terms of what you're going to ask of him this upcoming season, I think it's phenomenal. You got weapons around him better than you had previously. You got a run game that's going to be phenomenal, I believe, based on what they did last season and what they got coming back. You got a defense to support him. Like, he doesn't have to be the guy that leads the charge. He just has to play his role, be the cog in the machine, and as he progresses, put more on his plate, and Nebraska will be more than fine. So Jackson Dart, another year more polish in that system. Another year in that language class that is the Ole Miss offense. He's going to be good, man. Jeremiah Smith, let's not overthink it. He's 6'3", 215, and everyone that plays with him, not just coaches him, not just covers him, plays with him is like, yeah, he was developed in a lab. Nico Iamaleava, love the ceiling. The ceiling's obvious. How about the floor? The floor for him is way up here too. Cam Coleman, let's trust our eyes. We saw it in the A-Day. Let's not make it too difficult here. Cam Ward, same deal we said before with other quarterbacks. Physical tools are nice. That's the price of admission. But what he is as a leader at Miami and what he is when it comes to digesting this offense and leading this offense, that's what gets me really excited as a McCain fan. And then Dylan Raiola, yes, he's a true freshman. Don't put the weight of the world on his shoulders just yet, but he is definitely the guy to lead you to bowl eligibility. And as he progresses, you'll put more on his plate and things will become more and more exciting out there in Lincoln. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.